she's getting for the same reason that Jelly Belly's getting. If you want to challenge the administration, you will meet the challenge.
New York weren't just buzzing with hip-hop in the 80s and 90s. There was a wild collision between rap royalty and real-life mob legends. That's how mafioso rap was born. And it didn't happen by accident. Hollywood was fueling the fire with blockbuster hits like The Godfather and Scarface, making the mafia lifestyle look larger than life. And rappers ate it up. But when the mid-90s rolled around, Raekwon took it to a whole new level. His classic Only Built for Cuban Links didn't just flirt with that mafia vibe, it owned it. Fans still say it's the greatest mafioso rap album ever dropped, like a cinematic gangster flick pressed on wax. But here's where things get spicy. That album was so authentic, so detailed that it almost dragged Raekwon and his whole crew into serious trouble with real mafia figures. Word on the street is they had to be warned. Chill out and know your lane before things got ugly. Raekwon and his crew, they came from a block where things could pop off real quick. And trust, they were always down to handle it if it came to that. No hesitation, no backing down. If it was time to move, they moved. Straight, go time every time. Then, boom, enter the Wu-Tang Clan.
Now out of college that summer of '94, 8 months after the album caught a lot of heat. That month of August and early September, every dorm room out Mount Ida College was playing 30.
They crashed into the rap game like a bomb with no warning. Formed and led by the genius RZA, these dudes brought a whole different energy that the game wasn't ready for. Their first radio hit, Protect Your Neck, dropped in the early 90s and shook the underground. To its core, Wu-Tang wasn't just spitting bars. They were building a whole world. Gangster rap vibes mixed with unpredictable gritty beats. And then they flipped the script with kung fu movie samples. That combo was unheard of, and it worked crazy good. Steve Reifkin from Loud Records didn't even blink after just 4 days of vibing with them. He signed the whole crew. That's how undeniable their talent was. And the wildest part, even with so many members, each one came through with their own flavor. No one got drowned out. Every track felt like a lyrical martial arts match. Smooth, sharp, and lethal. When Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers dropped in 1993, it didn't just shake the streets, it took over. That raw, unfiltered energy hit the charts like a sledgehammer and changed the rap game for good. But here's the real mastermind move. Steve Reifkin of Loud Records gave them a deal that was unheard of back then. He didn't just sign the group, he let every member go and sign solo deals with other labels. Labels would have locked them all down, but not Steve. Funny enough, Loud had one of the smallest offers compared to big dogs, but Wu-Tang still chose them. Why? Because Loud gave them freedom, and that freedom, it paid off big time. Only Raekwon and Inspector Deck stuck with Loud for their solo work. Everyone else spread out and ate from different tables. That's how they moved, like a unit, but still made individual money moves. And don't get it twisted, RZA and GZA already had solo projects before Wu-Tang even signed with Loud. After 36, Chambers made Noise, Method Man wasted no time and became the first to ride the wave, dropping his solo debut, Teal and setting the tone. Then 1995 came in hot. Old Dirty Bastard Raekwon and GZA all dropped solo heat that same year. Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links dropped in August, right in the middle of ODB's return to the 36 Chambers in March and GZA's Liquid Swords in November.
Like, yo, Only Built for Cuban Links. I'm like, yo, that sound like the biggest chain of all that can't be broken. It can't be broken, but it's the most gleamingest chain to come in the party with in front. And you know when you see with those on, you know those ain't your everyday. Those is different. They will come knock on your door, you know. But the main thing was the shine and the lock that couldn't.
Back to Backfire and every one of those albums certified classics now. Wu-Tang was already famous for their wild blend of gritty street tales mixed with Shaolin flick vibes and kung fu aesthetics. Method Man and Obi leaned heavy into that style for their solo runs, keeping that kung fu mystique alive, and the fans loved it. But that also meant the pressure was on for Ree to follow suit. But Ray, he wasn't trying to copy anyone's formula. Instead, he switched it up and brought a more real, grounded vibe, something raw that reflected his actual life growing up in the streets. Raekwon wasn't playing around. He brought a raw, no-nonsense style of storytelling that hit different from anything Wu-Tang had done before. Only built for Cuban links, didn't lean on Shaolin fantasies. It pulled straight from the streets and was dripping with mob energy. Instead of kung fu flicks, this album felt like a mafia film on wax. Staten Island, where Ray grew up, had real connections to that world, and it showed in the music. The influence was so deep, Ray originally wanted to name the album Wu Gambinos, a direct nod to one of the most notorious crime families in New York.
It's basically just like making a Cuban link style. Like we shot away, we jumped on a plane, we went to Bahamas, we got one room, we doubled up, you know what I'm saying? We was just writing hard body, the ocean was behind us, and I remember us being up all night. Like we'd start rhyming like 12 o'clock in the afternoon, like just listen about 4 or 5 beats. But a lot of times we got busy like at night when it was like the ocean is looking black. You got the windows open, the breeze is coming in. We may take a little breather and listen to some.
But that name stirred up more than just hype. It stirred up real tension. Steve Riefkin, whose own father had actual ties to the Gambino family, had made a few serious calls. And when he came back, the message was crystal clear. That name not gonna fly. Now, 30 years later, fans agree Only Built for Cuban Links was the perfect name for that album. And real ones know the meaning behind it runs way deeper than just sounding cool. See, when Ray talked mafia talk, it wasn't just for show. He lived around that energy. This wasn't no made-up fantasy. He grew up surrounded by violence and survival. One story even says his own cousin shot a dude for bullying Ree when he was just a kid. That's the type of reality Ray came from. So yeah, the name Wu Gambinos would have made sense too, considering the mob influence. But Cuban Links hit harder with a deeper message. It spoke to trust, loyalty, and who's really built for this life. On the 25th anniversary of the album, Ree revealed that the title actually came from one of their lyrics, and it wasn't just a name. It was a code representation record of the block.
Record of the block, you know, real MCs that just come out and really just know what they doing on the mic, you know. He made these 2 records though, definitely it was like fresh off the block, coming into the game with something to prove.
It's like even to this day doesn't sound like anything out there. Those keys on there.
Yeah. It was definitely thumping though, you know. This is a representation record. You know, if we was to go to another borough or whatever, and then, you know, it's a real battle of wits and intelligent artists and MCs that really is credible
in these streets. A symbol of how rare and unbreakable their bond was. Like, that Cuban link chain, solid and forever. This album wasn't just legendary because of the music. It was the bond behind it that made it special. Raekwon didn't walk this path alone. Ghostface Killer was right there with him for nearly the whole ride. Ghost showed up on 12 out of the 18 tracks, which basically made him a co-pilot on Cuban Links. And here's where it gets real. When Ray got that $500,000 advance to make the album, he didn't keep it all for himself. Nope, he handed half of it to Ghostface without hesitation. That move alone shows how locked in they were. This wasn't business, it was family. Ray and Ghost straight up call each other brothers. And it ain't just talk. They grew up only 15 minutes apart in Staten Island, went to the same high school, and came up facing the same struggles. And since this album was all about Ray's life in the hood, who better to build it within someone who lived it right alongside him? Who better to help tell your story than someone who came up just like you? That's why Raekwon and Ghostface Killer took this project dead serious. They weren't just vibing in the studio, they went all in. Interview 8:46/9:03. They even flew out to the Bahamas to write the album, just the two of them, sharing a room like it was some old school dorm hustle. Normally, Wu-Tang did their magic in RZA's gritty basement studio, but Ray and Ghost wanted a new environment, a fresh headspace, and it worked. Still, RZA stayed deep in the mix, just like he did with the rest of the Wu solo projects. He kept his hands on the sound, shaping it with surgical focus. Ray wanted this one to sound grown, to feel elevated, and RZA understood the assignment. He locked in and crafted something that hit on a whole different level. See, RZ wasn't just thinking short term. He had a 5-year plan for the whole clan.
Oh yeah, well you know that record right there, that was straight for all the G's, you know, all the dons that really live that life and you know been in situations where you know they might have felt like they was on the run or something or whatever the case may be. Like that record spoke.
Every member had a target. Method Man was supposed to connect with women and kids, GZA with college intellectuals, and Ray and Ghost, they were built for the streets. And when it came to repping the streets, Raekwon and Ghostface did not disappoint. Their vision for Only Built for Cuban Links was clear. This wasn't just an album. It was a street movie on wax. They even called it the Purple Tape because the original cassette came in a rare purple shell. Just so you'd know, this one was different the second you saw it. From the cover art to the beats to the skits, it felt like you were watching a classic mob flick unfold, track by track.
It was definitely a classic record. You know, me and Ghost, we relate to that lifestyle, you know, where the streets, it wasn't simple. You know, we wanted it to be simple, but it wasn't. And this record just basically take you back to that vibe of, you know, being on the block and having...
And every detail was intentional. Ray and Ghost crafted a storyline that wasn't just about money and crime. It was about loyalty, betrayal, survival, and legacy. They painted the picture so vividly, fans felt like they were right there in the whip, riding through Staten Island, plotting the next move. And this wasn't just flex rap, this was cinema. And here's what really made the Purple Tape legendary. It shifted the culture. This album set the blueprint for how rap could blend real street life with cinematic storytelling and still keep it raw and authentic. After Ray and Ghost dropped this masterpiece, suddenly everybody wanted to drop mafioso rap, like it was the new wave. You had rappers flipping aliases like crime, bosses rocking suits in music videos, and talking that underworld talk like they were made men. But truth is, Raekwon and Ghost did it first, and they did it best. The influence massive. You could hear it in NASA as it was written, in Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt. Even Biggie started leaning into that slick Kingpin narrative. They all took notes from Cuban Links. And it wasn't just about the content. It was the style, the structure, the vibe. Ray and Ghost didn't just rap. They built a whole universe. The goal was to bring the gangsters in. And trust Ray and Ghost did just that with a straight up street. Classic.
Yeah, see all this right here, you know what I mean? This is why we doing this documentary, you know what I mean, called The Purple Tape Files. And then to see people, you know, having purple tape, you know, they made their own name for it, you know, because a lot of people didn't know Only Built for Cuban Links was that the name of the album. They just called it The Purple Tape. So, you know, a lot of people don't know that back in the days, you know, vinyl was big, but also the tapes was big though too. This was, you know, I don't even think CDs popping? Nah, CDs wasn't even.
I had the CD.
But here's the thing. Even though they nailed the gangster vibe, every Wu-Tang member had their own vision. None of them liked being boxed in or told how to sound. For Ray, it was deeper than just rhymes. His heart was in the cinema. His all-time favorite flick, The Godfather. No surprise there. During breaks in the studio, you'd catch him watching Scarface or John Woo's The Killer. And that influence, it didn't just inspire him. It bled into the music. RZA even laced the score from The Killer right into the album. You can hear it loud and clear on the opening track, Striving for Protection. A cold-blooded story about two drug dealers plotting one final high-stakes score before disappearing for good. Ray kept painting scenes like a movie, and Knuckleheads was no exception. He told the wild tale of two hustlers pulling a bank job and double-crossing their own crew, grimy and raw. And who better to hop on a track like that than Yugid? At the time, Yugid was bouncing in and out of jail, so he brought real experience to the table. He even admitted he was that knucklehead back then, so it hit different. Then came the fourth track, Criminology. Now this one is straight up banger. It dropped before the album and made serious noise. RZA himself said that this was the track that put Ghostface Killer on the map. Ghost snapped with a wild verse that still gets quoted today, and that beat absolutely bananas. Ray calls this joint one of the best reps of who he is as an artist. Gritty, sharp, and untouchable. Next up was Incarcerated Scarfaces, and Ray owned it. Solo. The beat was crazy, so he didn't even bring Ghost on. Just went all in himself, spitting 3 hard verses. The title Incarcerated Scarfaces wasn't just for style. It was a direct nod to the iconic Scarface movie, and it spoke volumes.
Black chocolate girl, one to shake ground like thunder. Politic to your deficit step, give me your number.
This record right here was the most slept on record at first to me, because one thing about us, when we was making music, we wasn't really catering to the female audience, it was more like being in the heart of the jungle, and playing with all the wild animals, It wasn't never where we felt like this record had anything nice to say like that, but then we knew that at the end of the day, as we listened to the album, we was like, yo, we got nothing up there for the women. So, me, at that point, they just got, no disrespect, I love the women, but this ain't that kind of record, but of course we went back to the, to the drawing board and really thought about it and said, you know what, we do need to have a woman's record.
Raekwon had major love for his homies locked up, and he never stopped showing it. Matter of fact, Wong once performed inside a prison. They pulled up and turned up with the inmates. Real ones never forget where they came from. Then came Rainy Days, one of the tracks that featured the soulful voice of Blue, Raspberry. She also appeared on Glaciers of Ice, bringing a whole different energy to the album. And get this, Raekwon actually wrote Rainy Days while chilling in Barbados. Yeah, you heard that right, Barbados. Speaking XXL, Ray said, when we wrote Rainy Days, I think we was already out the country. We was in Barbados by the water. Some joints we had the beach to, we went out of town with. That one specifically, we were by the water, had that good villa, right off the ocean. 3, 4 in the morning, wind blowing, curtains blowing, and we just really got a chance to put it down. Ray explained it clear. They crafted Rainy Day for that girl who's holding it down, but just can't figure out why her man's always gone. He a thorough, Ree said. He's not out there on nonsense. He's out hustling, try to put food on the table. That skit at the beginning, straight pulled from a movie where the girl says, I sing for him, and he isn't here. He ain't here 'cause he making money. That set the whole mood. Raw, emotional, and real. Next up on the album was Guillotine Swords, a straight lyrical. Slaughterhouse. It was the only track GZA featured on, and he blacked out on his verse. Inspector Deck came in just as heavy, spitting flames like it was nothing. Re-described this joint like a symphony, with every verse building into this masterpiece about chasing that high-ass lifestyle. And let's not forget, can it be all so simple? Remix. A deep, emotional cut where Ray and Ghost break down the mental tug-off war that comes with trying to leave the streets behind.
Making this album, we had to come with a mean title, and I think it was a rhyme that was said that we was writing because we was doing a lot of writing together, just reviewing our bars and just kind of like digging off each other. And at one time in the rhyme, it says something about only built for Cuban links who pull stings, sporting big pieces of ice carved in rings. So right there, it hit me. It was like, yo, only built for Cuban links. I'm like, yo, that sound like the biggest chain chain of all that can't be broken. It can't be broken, but it's the most gleamingest chain to come in the party with in front. And you know when you see with those on, you know those ain't your everyday. Those is different. They will come knock on your door, you know. But the main thing was the shine and the lock that.
Track 10 Glaciers of Ice came in ice cold and unforgettable, not just for the beat, but because it marked the official debut of Cappadena. He was supposed to be on Wu-Tang's first album, but he was behind bars at the time. Still, the crew never stopped rocking with him. Kappa had that rep, one of the few MCs who could lyrically demolish anybody in his way. Fast forward to track 16, and we got to talk about it. Wu Gambinos. Even though Reed couldn't name the entire album that due to real-life mafia heat, he still found a way to slip the title in as a track, and it ended up being one of the hardest joints on the whole album. This track featured a killer lineup. McKiller, RZA Method Man, and of course, Ghostface Killer. It was another brick in the mob-themed empire Ray was building with this project. He explained the aliases came from his love for the movie Once Upon a Time in America, where young hustlers rose from nothing but still had complicated loyalty and trust issues. And those names, they weren't random. Tony Stark's came from Iron Man, and Lou Diamond's came from Ray's obsession with the Ice Game. He was heavy into diamonds back then. He even started naming his boys and the crew based on that. Lifestyle, where he said this is my album. So if you're on this track, you gotta have an AK gotta sound like a boss out here. This was that Gambino energy in full swing. On the Wu Gambinos track, Ray went full creative mode with the nicknames Master Killer got dubbed Noodles, and he called GZA Maximilian. That was a straight reference to the movie Once Upon a Time in America, where Noodles and Max were tight like brothers. Ray saw GZA the same way. Smart, strategic, the kind of dude who'd drop a gem mid-kono and have the whole room quiet. Gray said, yeah, GZA is, like Mac, he the brains. He gave Deck the name Raleigh Fingers. Why? Because of how he used to roll his blunts. The names just started making sense after that. You God became Golden Arms. Then the crew started coming up with their own aliases. 2. RZA was Bobby Steele sounding like a militant producer, straight out of the Black Panther era on some revolutionary DJ mastermind vibe. Now, let's talk about what might be the most iconic track on the whole album. Ice Cream. This one featured Ghostface, Method Man, and Cappadena, and it was crazy catchy. Even though Ree wasn't really feeling the idea of making a track for the ladies at first, he gave a shot and it hit big. A street anthem with flavor for every kind of girl out there. And last, but definitely not least, Verbal Intercourse. The only outside feature on the album, and it had Nas, blessing the mic, Nas and the chef, mad mutual respect. Their bond wasn't just for show. It was solid, and it added another layer of greatness to an already golden album. But let's not forget one of the coldest touches that pushed this LP into icon status, the purple tape. Raekwon decided to press the album on a bright purple cassette on purpose. Why? Because in the streets, dealers would mark their product with special colors or packaging to stand out. Reed took that same mentality and flipped it into hip-hop history. That tape became more than just a format. It became a symbol. So much so that people don't even call the album Only Built for Cuban Links anymore. They just call it the purple tape. That's impact. This wasn't just a dope album. This was a legacy move. Ray didn't only drop a classic, he created a whole genre. Mafioso rap was born here, bringing that organized crime flavor into the rap world in a way nobody had done before. Raekwon pulled off something legendary. He blended cinematic flair, those grand dramatic movie samples, and RZA's next level production with real gritty storytelling that hit straight from the streets. No cap, this album wasn't just music. It was art with an edge. It elevated the entire Wu-Tang legacy and forever stamped Ray's name in the Hip-Hop Hall of Fame. And speaking of Wu-Tang, you peep that Staten Island still repping heavy to this day. It's wild how it all comes full circle. Or maybe that ain't a coincidence at all. But before you dip, don't forget to run it up like the vid. Drop a comment and let us know what you think about that mafia-soaked soul-heavy Wong sound that changed the game forever. Which track from the purple tape hit you the hardest? We appreciate every single one of y'all. Nothing but love and blessings. Stick around and see what's next in our hood.